Somalia was his exact words, and I said, I'm a soldier, I do what I'm told. So again, I answered the question, and to this day, I don't know if they knew what I said. I really don't. I think they finally got something that they could put out on the airwaves, and whether they understood what it was or not, I think they just said, well, we got something, let's end this.
Micheal Durant, he is the author of the book that's just out in paperback called In the Company of Heroes, and he is a former Black Hawk helicopter pilot. He's discussing his situation of being captured in Somalia after being shot down. You're listening to Focal Point. We'll be right back after a break. I'm Mimi Gerges. We value your feedback on our programs. Please send your comments to feedback@fpradio.com. That's feedback@fpradio.com. I hope you're enjoying the program. Focal Point is an independently produced show, and we need your support to continue bringing you quality programming. To find out how you can help, please visit our website, www.fpradio.com, or send us an email to info@fpradio.com. And thanks. Welcome back. You're listening to Focal Point. With me is Micheal Durant. We're discussing his book called In the Company of Heroes. He's a former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and the recipient of several awards. Micheal, a lot of people, when they face near-death experiences or situations like yours, they get religion. Did that happen to you?
It did. I've been a Catholic all my life, and what I tell people is before all this, I was going through the motions, meaning I went to church and I sat there, but I don't think I really got it. And I remember these periods in my life as a boy when I was just absolutely miserable in church, and I look at my kids now and I try not to get too angry with them because I remember how I felt at the time. But there's a point where I think any of us who face death, there is only one place to turn, and that's God. And I had done it before. This was actually my fourth combat tour. I'd been involved in a lot of other real-world operations before this, and every time it was a high-risk operation where the potential existed that somebody wasn't going to come back. I would say a prayer before we went out, and in this particular case, I prayed quite a bit, and I think it was the right thing to do. It's reassuring. I think it helps you emotionally and spiritually, and I have tried to live up to the promises I made, which is, I suppose, something only I know, but I have tried to, and I think it's all worked out well in the end.
After 11 days, you were released. Why were you released? I mean, were they holding you for some reason that, as a bargaining chip?
Well, President Clinton sent a former ambassador to Somalia to, and I use the word negotiate, but there was no deal. So he was sent to handle my release, is maybe a better way to describe that. And I've spoken to Robert Oakley directly, and he met with the people that were holding me on about my 9th day in captivity. And he gave them two options. He said, you can let him go unconditionally, or you can hold him. And if you hold him, we're going to come get him eventually. And when we do, we're going to bring everything we have. And his threat, if you want to call it that, was backed up by the fact that all the assets that had been previously taken out of Somalia, which was, by the way, a tragic mistake in the first place, were all brought back in. During that 9 days, the tanks came back, the carrier battle group came back, the Marines came back.
Because you were still there.
Well, because of me being in captivity and the firefight itself. The whole battle caused a realization, I think, back here that, hey, this is not a peacekeeping operation. These people are aggressive, they're violent, they're anti-U.S., and we've got to get in there and stabilize things again and figure out what are we going to do to move this thing forward. And then I think, tragically, we made the wrong mistake in the end and completely withdrew. But Robert Oakley, having made those two options known, left, and within 48 hours, they let me go unconditionally.
Now, had there been any rescue plans in effect before that?
Oh, absolutely. The rescue plans probably went into effect within hours of the shoot down.
But they didn't know where you were?
No, it was just that was the piece of the puzzle that was missing. They were pretty sure I was in the city, and had I been in the city and they'd have gotten a good solid piece of intelligence that led to a specific location, they were ready to go.
But you were expecting at any moment your friends would bust in and come and get you.
I really was, and I was trying to figure out what I needed to do to make sure I helped them be successful. Also, I was thinking what I would say, and if a Somali stuck a weapon in my face to shoot me, because that is probably what their orders were, what I would do to try to defend myself against that. I was trying to think of ways that I could signal so that I could help them find me. And I had come up with a few innovative ideas, but never got a chance to actually do anything.
But you couldn't even get up and walk at that point.
Right, and the thing is, there's lots of time on your hands, so you get all kinds of time to think. And some of these ideas are probably a bit extreme, but again, your mind wanders, and you got to rein it back in, I suppose.
Describe your release.
Surreal is the best word that I can come up with. It was almost like a tea party. They brought in some dignitaries. I don't know whether they were from neighboring countries or just other clansmen, but I believe they actually were from other countries because of the way they were dressed. And they had snacks and drinks, and they were making small talk in the room. They brought a Nigerian prisoner who they'd held a little bit longer than I had been held into my room, and he was being released also, and he was pretty happy that he was going to get out of there. And then a Red Cross doctor arrived, and he had me fill out some forms. He gave me some morphine, which it's the first pain relief I had in 11 days, and it was a tremendous relief. And again, getting back to my point about not letting them fool you into thinking something's happening when it's not, I tried to keep my guard up even then, thinking this still could be a setup, and until I actually went through the gates at the UN compound, I was not convinced that this was actually going to happen.
Shortly after that, you got a phone call from President Clinton. What did you say to him?
Well, it was an emotional time. I just found out that two of my good friends had died in another crash, the first aircraft that went down, and I was devastated by that. I expected to see them after being released, and when I got the news that they had been killed, it had a significant emotional impact on me, just thrown on top of everything else that had already occurred. And I was tired. I'd been through surgery. I had a lot of pain medication, and when they stuck the phone in my hand, there was some mixed emotion there, because a lot of us to this day feel that we were let down by the senior leadership. They didn't give us a lot of the things that we asked for to be successful in this operation, and literally felt that the blood was on their hands. And at the same time, realizing that he's the president and the commander-in-chief, I need to be respectful. So I just said, I'm just proud to be an American and glad I'm free. And that was it. It was a brief conversation.
After you got back, a lot of survivors experience what's called survivor's guilt, that you got to go home and the others didn't. Did you feel any of that?
I never did. And I've wondered why. It doesn't keep me up at night, but I've wondered why. And the only explanation I have is that I know in my heart that I did everything I could do to save the aircraft, save the crew, and then safeguard everyone on the ground, and then even in captivity, repeatedly tried to find out what had happened to them, if there was anything that I could do, to help them. And other than being at a different point in space when that RPG flew toward the aircraft, I'm not sure I could have done anything else. And I suppose that there's some calm that comes as a result of that, knowing I couldn't have done anything any differently, and that's the only explanation I can come up with. But I have never felt guilt on having lived, and I wouldn't want anyone else to feel guilty if I had died and they had not.
You'd mentioned them before, the two Delta operators that came